guys, this is Justin at the Shababa Review, and due to the fact that Man of Steel is coming out very soon, which is awesome by the way, I decided to take a look at the original Superman movies that came out before it, that being the 4 Christopher Reeve films and Superman Returns. So I'm going to be taking a look at all of these 5 movies leading up to the premiere practically of Man of Steel, and then after that, me and Sam will do our review of Man of Steel. So let's get started with the original classic 1978 Superman the movie, starring Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, and of course the greatest Superman, the Superman, Christopher Reeve. So to start out, I guess I'll mention the plot. The plot's it's a straightforward Superman origin story. So it starts out on Krypton with Jor-El, Superman's father, and the planet is about to be destroyed by the Red Sun. I think it's from the sun or whatever. And so he's trying to get people to evacuate everything. They don't believe him. And so he sends off his son to planet Earth while Krypton gets destroyed, which is a great scene, by the way. It's very intense and just very awesome. Next you see Superman. He lands in Kansas, in Smallville, picked up by the Kents. And then you kind of see him in high school and stuff like that. And then when he gets to Metropolis and becomes Superman, which is when the movie really takes off and becomes a very funny movie. Basically, then you have the plot of Lex Luthor trying to destroy part of California in order to make it his own little part of the country, and then because he's big into real estate and stuff like that, and then Superman has to stop him. Very simple, but the movie works. I say this is probably my favorite comic book movie because it's the perfect blend of that seriousness of an actual epic movie and also that fun and goofiness of a comic book. The movie never veers into too comic booky territory. It doesn't become too goofy. It never becomes too serious. It reaches a fine balance, and it's perfect. It's a great film. I love this movie. So the cast is great. Everybody, you can tell, was taking their role seriously because this is the first big comic book movie, serious movie. Before that, there were Superman and the Mole Men, which was in the 50s, and that was basically a pilot for the George Reeves TV show. Then you have the Adam West Batman movie, which is basically just part of the TV show. So this is the first big serious movie based off a comic book, and it's surprising that they got this many great actors in it and that they gave their all, and they weren't just oh, it's a comic book movie, who cares. They got Marlon Brando, the Godfather himself, to play Jor-El, Superman's father, and he's really good in the part. Then you have Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor. Now his character is much more goofy and very comedic and less serious than most of the villains today, definitely. But he pulls it off. You can tell he was having a lot of fun, and there's a lot of great funny moments. His partner, Otis, he's hilarious. Their stuff together is really funny. It's goofy, but it works with the movie. Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, she finds that great combination of being a very strong female character and then being kind of ditzy a little bit around Superman. And she pulls it off great. She's a great Lois Lane. I'd probably say she's one of the best Lois Lanes. And obviously, you have to talk about him, Christopher Reeve as Superman. He is Superman. I'm sorry. Henry Cavill, who's playing Superman in Man of Steel, he may turn out to be great, but no matter what, Christopher Reeve will always be Superman. His performance is just great, and it brings the whole movie together because he is perfect as the part of Superman. And also great as Clark Kent. And as Clark Kent, he's very bumbling and stuff like that, but he's also very likable. And he's a good character, which is something I'll get to it more in the Superman Returns review, where they kind of lost, where they just made him completely bumbling and goofy. He's not just that. He also has a character. And both characters, they're technically the same people. They're both great. And Christopher Reeve's awesome. The movie is directed by Richard Donner, who actually got hired to direct the movie because he did good work on The Omen. kind of weird choice, but he's actually great. He also went on to direct the Lethal Weapon movies, and there's a whole thing where with Superman the movie was being shot not back to back, like simultaneously with Superman 2. They're shooting them both at the same time, and they got about like 70% done of Superman 2 when they started to go over budget on Superman 1. So they decided we'll just stop Superman 2 for a little while and just finish up 1, and then we'll come back to 2 later. And after Superman 1 premiered, Donner had a falling out with the producers, and they fired him from Superman 2 and had to hire somebody else to direct Superman 2. So there's this whole debate where he really doesn't like the producers. If you watch the audio commentary, whenever the producer came out, he's like, "Oh, who the heck's that?" Because you can tell he just doesn't like him. And they made a terrible mistake by firing him, which we'll elaborate on in the Superman 2 review, and probably the rest of the Superman reviews, because you'll see how the series would have been a great series with Richard Donner staying on as director for like every movie. Because you can tell in the audio commentaries, he really knows Superman. He really cares about the character, and he was willing to do a franchise. He wasn't just going to be like, I just want to do Superman 1 and that's it. He was willing to do a whole series. And I would have loved to have seen his Richard Donner Superman series. That would have been great. So the special effects, everybody's going to laugh because oh, it's the 70s, it's the goofy special effects. The special effects in this movie hold up. I mean, yeah, they're not amazing. You're not going to watch them now and be like, whoa, that's amazing how they do that. But there's no moment where it's extremely obvious that they're on wires and it's not in your face. The effects aren't bad. As the sequels went on, the effects got worse, but the effects in this movie, it's kind of hard to explain, but they just work. You buy them with the movie. You're never sitting there going that was a bad effect. They all just fit perfectly with the movie. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm not just trying to defend the movie because I love it. It's actually a legit point I'm trying to make here, but just the effects work. And the tagline for the movie was, "You'll believe a man can fly," and they pulled it off. There's a lot of the flying scenes work very well. And there's a great scene where it's you see Superman flying, and then all of a sudden the camera turns with him, so he was actually flying upside down. And just stuff like that, yeah, it doesn't look as great. The shot's a little more still and not as moving around as it would be today. But you're still how exactly? I mean, he had to be on something, but how did they exactly turn it and make that work? It works. It's awesome. The ending, it's kind of a spoiler. The ending has Superman fly. I'm not going to tell you why he's flying back. You haven't seen the movie, but he flies back. He flies around the Earth, which spins the Earth backwards and reverses time. And yeah, it makes no sense, and it's very stupid. And everybody always complains about that. But it's one of those things where I think it's very stupid, but it works while you're watching the movie. It's something you just buy while watching the movie. It's okay, it's turned back to the Earth. But it's one of the things when you start thinking about it is really stupid. But it works in the movie because it's a fun movie. It's not the Dark Knight, and it's not the Avengers, but it's great in its own right. The movie is an epic. I will call it an epic. It's almost like a modern day version of Ben-Hur and stuff like that, where you can tell a lot of money and effort and that went into the set design. And you can tell in every frame there's somebody put a lot of effort into making it. And back on the effects for a little bit, it's crazy how all those effects were in camera because they had no computers back then. And some of that stuff, I was watching the making of how they had to put a model and then they had to combine that with a matte shot of something else, and it's crazy. It's really cool to watch the making ofs for especially this movie because it's great to see all the effort that went into making this movie, and it just shows that everybody cared about this movie and wanted it to be something big. And also the whole cast they got was great. They got a lot of big name people, so it felt like a bigger movie, and that's what this movie feels like. It's epic. I have to say that. I usually try not to use that word with too many movies. What also adds to the epicness of the movie is John Williams' score. Not just the Superman theme, which is iconic and is the theme of Superman. Just his whole score and all the music it's John Williams. It's great, and it really one of the things that helps define the movie. That when you hear that music, you just know it's Superman the movie, and that music is great. just this whole movie, I say is great. Like I know, like I said, the turn back time thing is a little bit flawed, but it works. Like the whole movie just works. That's all I can really say about it. So, out of 10, I have to go perfect 10 out of 10. It's one of those movies that I would understand if you do like it and you don't give it 10 out of 10 because you think it has some flaws. I perfectly understand that. But what also adds to my love of this movie is that it's a childhood movie. A movie I grew up with. Like, I grew up with all of those movies right there. Mostly the first four. Superman Returns came a little bit later. But, so these are a big part of my childhood. Like, Christopher Reeve as Superman is a big part of my childhood. I always loved watching these movies. Sadly, for some reason, mostly Superman 4, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I was a messed up kid, I guess. So that's Superman the movie. It's definitely worth checking out if you like comic book movies, and to see where it kind of started, where like the advent and the real like true comic book movie started, and it still holds up as a fun movie. Yeah, sure, it's nowhere near like as crazy or as action packed as like the Avengers, but it still works and is a fun movie. So join me next time for Superman 2. Where I'll be doing 2 videos, one video on the theatrical version and the Richard Donner cut, because I really want to discuss why I like those two, discuss the differences between the 2 versions. And yeah, that's about it. I'll talk to you guys later.